Hello and welcome to the Irish Constitution Hour. Here we are. The date is March 16th, 2025. I am your host, Josh for Canada. Joining me is my co-host, Sarah from ERA, and our constitutional analyst, Mark Anthony. This is the ninth episode of a 12-part series regarding the 1937 Bunreacht na hÉireann. Today's episode is focused on Article 42, Education, and Article 44, Religion. Now, tomorrow is St. Patrick's Day, and this being an educational treatise, I would be remiss if I did not open up my Lives of the Saints Illustrated Catholic Book Publishing Company new revised edition book here, talking about saints. Okay, so I just want to do a brief little educational background of St. Patrick for people tomorrow. It's not just about drinking. Okay, this was a great man. Okay, give me a minute here. Okay, St. Patrick, Bishop, Apostle of Ireland, March 17th, patron of Ireland. The date and place of St. Patrick's birth are uncertain. He was born about the year 389. The son of Calpurnius, a Roman British deacon of Cochessa. When he was 16, he was carried as a captive into Ireland and obliged to serve a heathen master as a herdsman. Despite the harshness of the life there, he not only held on to his faith, but also learned the science of prayer and contemplation. After 6 years, he effected a miraculous escape and returned home. In a dream, he was told to go back and Christianize Ireland. St. Patrick prepared for his task by studying in the monastery of Laurence from about 412 to 415 and was ordained by the Auxerre by St. Amator about 417. In 431, after a period during which his vocation to Ireland was tested by the hesitancy of his superiors in entrusting such a mission to him, St. Patrick was sent to assist Bishop Palladius in Ireland. On the death of the latter, St. Patrick was consecrated bishop by St. Germanus after receiving the approbation of Pope Celestine I. He traveled the length and breadth of Ireland, planting the faith everywhere despite the hostility of the Druids, and succeeded in converting several members of the royal family. On a visit to Rome in 442, he was commissioned by Pope Leo the Great to organize the Church of Ireland, and on his return, made Armagh the primate see and established bishops in various places. In winning a pagan nation for Christ, St. Patrick established many monasteries for men and women and made it famous for its seats of piety and learning. In the ensuing centuries, Irish monks carried the faith to England, France, and Switzerland. After living a completely apostolic life of labor and prayer, St. Patrick died on March 17th, 461, in the monastery of Saul in Down in Ulster, leaving behind his Confessions, which give a vivid picture of a great man of God. That is necessary for all of us to understand. Okay, without further ado, Sarah from ERA will begin the episode by providing a baseline of facts for our discussion today. Sarah, take it away.
Céad mo Carja, agus la Fila Padraig Sonadich. So for non-Irish speakers, I've said God be with you, my friends, and happy St. Patrick's Day. Well, for tomorrow. All right. So we're on week 9 today, and thanks everybody for tuning in. Just a reminder that you can download the PDF of An Bunreacht from the website, which is bunreacht1937.ie. We'll post that on Josh's page. And you can follow through the different articles as we're going through. And there's a lot of really good information on that website. So it's definitely a good read, guys. All right. So today, well, show number 9 today. Over the past 8 weeks, we have looked at the preamble, the nation, and the state. We then commenced on fundamental rights, and that is the Articles 40 to 44 within the Constitution. And they are our natural rights. And our natural rights are antecedent to all positive law. remember that the people came before the state. So we delved into personal rights, Article 40, and the family, which is Article 41, where we highlighted the primary and natural role of the family, and in particular, the role of the mother within the home. Today, we're going to continue with fundamental rights. Articles 41, the family, we'll talk a wee bit about that again today because it's all intertwined, really. Then we'll look at Article 42, which is education, and Article 44, which is religion. So Article 42 of the Irish Constitution focuses on education and the rights and duties of parents. So keeping in mind, guys, that the family is recognised as a natural, primary and fundamental unit of society, as the cornerstone of society, and whose role and function are recognised as essential for the well-being of individuals and society as a whole. That's just a wee reminder, all right? So Article 42. So the state acknowledges parents have the primary responsibility for the education of their children. The state recognises that parents have the right to choose the type of education their children receive, whether that be in schools or in the home. That whilst parents have the primary responsibility, the state also has a duty to ensure that all children have access to education, meaning the state must provide and support educational opportunities for all children. The state emphasises that education should be directed towards children's full development, and that will include the moral, intellectual, physical, social and religious education, with parents having the right to ensure that their children's education aligns with their religious and moral beliefs. So overall, Article 42 highlights the importance of education as a fundamental right and the need for a collaborative approach between parents and the state to ensure that children receive quality education. Article 44 looks at freedom of religion. So the state recognises that Almighty God should be worshipped and that it has a duty to honour and respect religion, acknowledging the importance of religious practice in society and committing to holding God's name in reverence. The state recognises the Catholic Church as the guardians of the faith professed by the majority of the people or citizens. It also recognises other Christian faiths, such as the Church of Ireland and other religious denominations existing at that time, ensuring they had the right to practice freely. It is guaranteed that the state will not interfere with the free profession and practice of religion, and not to impose disabilities or discrimination based on religious beliefs. This applies to public institutions, employment and education. While the Catholic Church was recognised in a special way, the Constitution does not recognise Catholicism as a state religion. This is an important distinction, as it still allows for religious pluralism. Whilst the Catholic ethos has heavily influenced education, the state cannot force children to attend religious instruction against their parents' wishes. So religious education and schools is one of the most debated aspects of Article 44. Article 44.2.4 upholds the right of religious bodies to manage their own schools, and this has led to significant discussions about the dominance of religious-run schools in ERA and how that aligns with modern views on education. Education in the schools, I suppose, at the minute is a very significant topic, given the new ideology being introduced here and I suppose other parts of the world as well. For example, the copious amounts of genders. I suppose one of our politicians spent 25 minutes reading out over 72 genders to the Justice Minister. And I suppose children being told that they can change their sex, etc. There's a lot of parents not happy about this indoctrination. And just to highlight, guys, that the Irish Constitution allows for man, woman, him, her, person and citizen. It doesn't mention 72 plus genders, etc. And I suppose the most recent case we can look at the minute is Enoch Burke. And I suppose a lot more people are aware of Enoch's case at the minute because his parents and his siblings have been over in America disrupting to highlight the plight of their son. I suppose he refused. He was a teacher. He refused to call the children by pronouns other than him and her. So I pass it over to you now, Josh. All right.
Excellent. Thank you. So we thus begin. We are happy today to be joined by the Irish constitutional analyst, Mark Anthony. Mark, over the last 9 weeks now, we have covered a lot of the foundational elements of the Irish Constitution. And here we are now covering such matters such as religion, education, and the family. Do you have any introductory thoughts related to Sarah's baseline of facts?
Hi, folks. Sarah, well done. I think you covered a lot there. And well done, Josh, on remembering the patron saint of Ireland, St. Patrick, who brought the Christianity, I suppose, onto this island. We lived in a very dramatic way and very natural way of cultures and traditions beforehand. But that continued, and we adopted the Christian ethos. And as time went on, that Christianity built into Catholicism. So Ireland is predominantly a Catholic country. It's still professed as the largest faith on the island. So these articles are among the most inventory in the entire Constitution, because it's the fundamental rights. It's what's afforded in law to we the people, be it, as Sarah said, a man, a woman, a person, a citizen, a human. So we all have these rights and they're afforded to us. But the 1922 Sir Stad Éireann Irish Free State Constitution, well, it hadn't got these rights written in them, so they're very important, and I think they were a very important addition. But we have had feminists and whatnot down through the years who, including TD, Breed Smith, who said this constitution chains a woman barefoot and pregnant to the kitchen sink. And nowhere within the Constitution does it say that. And she stated that in Andal and wasn't called up on it. They want to remove the mother from the home. And that's the matriarchs of society, the mothers, the grandmothers, the educators. People will say, oh, that's archaic, way of thinking. It has stood the test of time, people. It has stood the test of time. And only since the year 2000 really has this trans ideology really taken hold of you can be anything in the world. If you want to be a butterfly, be a butterfly. If you want to be a dog, be a dog. No, I call that spoilt children. And people being completely out of touch with what it means, what they actually signed up to have a family. Because the teaching and the education of our children sets the stage for what future society looks like. And if society keeps going in the trajectory that it's going, well, the natural order of society will fail. And without the natural order of society, which is the family unit, it's protected because of that. Without that natural order, the future's bleak. We're bringing children up to believe that they are things. No, they are unique. Yes, they are made in the image of God. Whether you believe in them or not, or not, it's written in your DNA sequence, in your DNA strand. Every one of us are unique. And it's the family. So if you make that commitment and you have a child, well, it's your duty. It's your duty, be it a parent, a mother, or a father, or otherwise, to bring that child up with manners, with morals, with innate institutions built into them that they can go out and live in society and get on with their fellow man or woman. And the case law surrounding Articles 41 and 42 frequently rests on both articles because of their close mutual connection and their subject matter, according to their effect, will have been considered not section by section, but within certain topics of which one or both articles have material in litigation.
Mark, can I ask you a quick question here? Excuse me.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, 41 and 42, it's the effect that will have been considered. How does 41 and 42, the effect of 41 and 42, allow something such as 71 genders and or Enoch Burke's situation to occur within era in the modern day? How is the case law sort of born, allowed this effect of 71 genders to happen in your understanding?
It doesn't. It's repugnant to the Constitution. It's repugnant to the Constitution. And that's why they're trying to bring it in legislation to normalize it. So in future, they can maybe go with constitutional questions. They did go with that constitutional question, looking to bring in other durable relationships. Other durable relationships could be anything left to the imagination. You could have a durable relationship with somebody one day and not have a durable relationship with them the next day. Whereas the family is a protected institution in society. Like, this is Irish society. And we went that far and beyond, outside the scope of what it is to be natural, that we're open to anything. Well, at least the government thought so. The government thought that they could be open to anything, and with enough propaganda and promotion and highlighting by gay men, Leo Varadkar and Roderick O'Gorman, were saying that they wanted to protect women within the Constitution. That's an insult for two men to step forward to want to protect women. Is the women of society, because any woman I know in Irish society are the strongest backbone of this society. And that's why this society has lasted so long. It's because of the mothers. It's because of the mothers. I was insulted that they were looking to remove mothers. You know, where are we going here in society? Like, here's the literal translation of Article 42.1. The state acknowledges that the family is the primary connate teacher of the child and guarantees not to interfere with the inalienable right nor the inalienable obligations of parents to provide education according to their means for their family in matters of religion, morality, intellect, body, and sociality, or sociality, or whatever, you know what I mean, social. So the state acknowledges that the family is the connate teacher of the child in matters of religion, morality, intellect, body, and socially. So the Constitution states that it is the family who teach the child. But yet with this equity, inclusion, and whatever, all that LGBTQ plus, trans ideology, unnatural, anti-human, anti-everything, anti-God, anti-Christian teachings is not at the liberty of teachers or the educators of our child to do that without the say-so of the family. So that was a gender equality referendum that was held on the 8th of March, being carers or other durable relationships, because they were looking to dilute family and mothers. They were looking to dilute it to say anybody can do that job. And if they were able to do that, well, then the state can step in and have extra powers, because anybody can have a durable relationship with a child. But not everybody can give the child the love and affection of a mother. That motherly touch, I touched on it last week. I've got 2 children, a boy and a girl, and I lack that capacity as a mother. Although I carry out both roles, but I lack that capacity, that mothering touch that my mother gave to me. And without that, there's a disconnect. And it's very hard for single parent families to be able to rear their children. But quite a number of single parent families actually go above and beyond rearing their children, because they feel under that sort of judgment of society of, oh, you're a single parent family, let's feel sorry for you. But when truth be told, those children normally grew up and have very good manners, very polite, and they know the meaning of family, because their family was, suppose, what would you say, broken up or whatever. And yes, we do come from broken families. Some of us do come from broken families, but it's with every and every breath in our body, it's up to us, the adults, the parents, the mothers, the fathers, the elders of society, to see that we're guiding our children in the right direction for the future, because that's what preserves our country going into the future. The past generations done it. The past generations done it. I think as we have went on and until these this fourth industrial revolution, there is a transhumanist agenda, you know, with all this augmentation of AI, where you can put on a pair of sunglasses and you can have a computer in front of you. Well, they want to go further than that. They want to have that in the retina of your eye. And we're seeing it in technologies. Yeah, it's widely available. You can see it there. They're so progressed in it. It's nearly here, people.
Mark, can I ask you a quick question here?
Yeah.
Our treatise is the defense of the 1937 on Bunrak. What is a belief that is held is that this here document, created in 1937, sets the path, and it's as relevant and as important today as it ever was. Now, as I mentioned, or as you've said, that for example, the 71 genders and the Enoch Burke situation are not in accordance with the Constitution of Ireland. I'd like to know, how can the Constitution strike back? How can the Constitution strike back? If this is illegal, is it the Constitution that proves it's illegal? And if that is the case, how do people of ERA mobilize themselves to speak for the Constitution on this matter?
Okay, good question, Josh. So the national parliament, national being, right? So the nation's parliament, right? The Oireachtas shall not enact any laws. This is 15.4.1. The Oireachtas shall not enact any laws which is in any respect repugnant to this constitution or any provision thereof. Every law enacted by the Oireachtas which is in any respect repugnant to this constitution or to any provision thereof shall, but to the extent of only of such repugnancy, be invalid. The Oireachtas shall not declare acts to be infringements of the law, which were not so at the date of their commission. So these things are repugnant because they're unnatural, and national, natural, you know, it's all the same. Natural law is as old as man himself. It is called natural law because it derives from the nature of man as a rational being, a person, an individual in society. It is the moral law which prescribes how men should act accordingly to right reason. We have the power of judicial review, Josh, which was we spoke about there. We adopted those principles from the most significant U.S. Supreme Court ruling, Marbury versus Madison, 1803. And that is judicial review of executive powers. And that the executive being the 15 ministers of the government. Because if they are acting ultra vires or in an ultra vires manner, which is an illegal outside and beyond the powers of their remit, their job remit. So you could, with this constitution here, and only this constitution, I believe, this is my personal takings of it. I'm just going to get this here for you here now. So, all judges shall be independent in the exercise of their judicial function subject to this constitution and law. No judge shall be eligible to be a member of either House of the Oireachtas or hold office and position. So 34. So you go to the judges all have a declaration, right? So every person appointed a judge under this constitution shall make and subscribe the following declaration. In the presence of Almighty God, and it's a Christian God because that's declared in the preamble. All our obligations are to our divine Lord Jesus Christ. So he's obligated to a Christ God here, okay? Which is natural, eternal law, right? The Holy Bible. To solemnly and sincerely promise and declare that I will duly and faithfully and to the best of my knowledge and power execute the office of Chief Justice, or in the case may be, without fear or favour, effect, or ill will towards any man, that I will uphold the Constitution and the laws, not this Constitution, the Constitution. May God direct and sustain me. So, judicial review then of executive powers. Well, if they're acting in an ultra vires manner, they're outside and beyond the scope of reality, so to speak, and the people have the power to challenge it in courts, and that's with the judicial declaration there. All the judges are bound by that, and then 34.2. 34.2 and 34.3.1, 34.3.2, and 34.3.3 is original jurisdiction. So the court of first instance shall include a high court invested with full original jurisdiction, that being Ambanrachtia that we're reading out of, in and power to determine all matters in question, whether of law or fact or civil or criminal. 34.3.2. The jurisdiction of the High Court shall extend to the question of the validity of any law having regard to the provisions of this Constitution, and in all cases in which any such matter shall come into question, the High Court alone shall exercise original jurisdiction. The courts of final instance shall also include courts of local and limited jurisdiction with the right of appeal as determined by law. So the court of final appeal shall be called the Supreme Court. Where do they have this jurisdiction? Well, you go back to the beginning of the state articles, which we have already covered. Articles 4, Era is annum dum stat. So that's where the jurisdictional powers. Era is annum dum stat. Era is a sovereign, independent, democratic state. So the judges are sovereign and independent, and they have to. They're based on democratic principles of international law and the Constitution. So they're bound. There is protections of natural law. So I want to read this wee bit out here on natural law. I read it, the first bit of it there, as an individual in society. It is the moral law which prescribes how men should act accordingly to right reason. It imposes obligations and confers rights on man as regards of both himself and his fellow men. In order to fulfill the obligations of natural law, human nature is endowed with certain rights that are anterior to all positive human law, and which no human can abrogate. So, the natural law, which defines the most fundamental duties by virtue of which every law is binding, is the law which assigns us to the fundamental rights. It is because we are caught up in the meshes of universal order. You see, they're trying to bring in all this new global governance, new world order, and everything's happening at a million miles an hour, people, and we're missing a lot of things here. But there's two things that you don't try to reinvent in life, and that's the wall and the wheel. They've stood the test of time. The family as a moral institution of society, without which true social order cannot be obtained. Without which true social order cannot be obtained. If we mess with the society of family, we're doomed. We're doomed in the future. We're doomed in the future. It doesn't look good, like. And the birth rate on this island is actually down. I think it's sitting at 1.2. So that's unsustainable to keep the preservation. We need to get the family ethos back into children. We need to give them an island where it's easy to live on, affordable to live on, that you want to bring your children up in it. And the way things is going at the minute, with the way the influx of people in here, well, it is upsetting the education of our children. Because the Justice Minister last year, Helen McEntee, now the Education Minister, is saying that the schools cannot cope with the demand of children coming into the country, or people looking placements in schools. And that is due to the influx of immigration coming in with big families. They're coming in with 4, 5, 6, and they're all durable relationships. And the legislation, the EU Migration Pact, protects them, because it will put a fine on the public purse if we don't fulfill our obligations. So yes, we can take judicial review of executive powers and challenge the EU Migration Pact. Why? Because it allows for other durable relationships and durable relationships. And as a people, the people of Era came out and we voted no to durable relationships. Why? Because it's unnatural. It cannot be defined properly in law. It can mean anything. As I say, if you want to be a butterfly, be a butterfly. So if we start losing what it means for society to function, the natural order of society, we are doomed. We are doomed. And it's up to people to protect that. It's up to us as the adults of society to protect that for our children, and to teach our children the morals and the ethics and that of what this country is based on, Christian ethics. The Western world is based on Christian teachings. The Western world is based on Christian teachings. And what they're doing is they're getting red ants and black ants, and they're sticking them into a jar, and they can coexist lovely together. But it takes the hand of the government or the state to come along and lift that jar and shake that jar, and the red ants will kill the black ants, or vice versa. And we are being manipulated.
Powerful metaphor there, Mark.
Yeah.
Before we go down a certain track here, I just want to propose a hypothetical. As we know, Enoch Burke is in a certain predicament. Let's just for a moment here, Mark, imagine yourself as a teacher, and you are being compelled to do something against the Constitution, let's say, or against your conscience, right? Enoch Burke is refusing to use these pronouns. He's refusing to use pronouns other than him and her, let's say. If you were in Enoch's position right now, how would you play your hand?
Knowledge. First and foremost, you would have went back and you would have looked at your contract of employment, terms and conditions of employment. What you first signed with the school, whenever you go into the school for your 3 or 4 interviews, and you pass them all glowingly, as I'm sure he did, because he would have been an excellent student, because they're all very well educated, and I think he's a history teacher and whatnot, so very, very smart man. So the first thing that you go for in any dispute in the employment sector, be it in school, be it anywhere, if you're getting paid via contract, if you're getting paid for providing a service, well, within your terms and conditions, it tells you what you're deemed to provide. And unless you have signed that, well, then you're not obligated to adhere to that. So that's a breach of contract. So you can go down the breach of contract route. And you could go then to your solicitors and do things like that there. I think things have been taken hastily here about religious rights and things like that. Religious rights are an innate. So if you want to practice religious teachings and things like that, well, you become a religious teacher, or you go to church, or you pray as it states in the Bible, peacefully in your own personal space or whatever. You know what I mean? Nobody can remove that from you. That's in your mind.
If I could be specific here, how would you play your constitutional hand? How would you play the 1937? Is there an opportunity in his situation to take the An Bunrak and hold them to task?
Well, the Constitution doesn't permit for 72 different genders, and everybody under no. So Article 38.1 of the Constitution is nobody should be deprived of their personal liberty, save in accordance with law. And 40.1, all humans. What is it? All humans as or all persons. No, all citizens as human persons shall be held equally before the law. All citizens as human persons. So it doesn't permit for cisgender and agender. It permits for man and woman. It permits for citizen. It permits for his and her. It states these words in the Constitution. The Constitution does not permit for 72 other genders. So it is unconstitutional. It is not written in law. Legislation, as I said there, any act or any legislation which is repugnant to the Constitution should be deemed null and void. But any act is seen as constitutional until it is challenged and struck down as unconstitutional in a court of law. So the Constitution, they're looking all these extra rights for 72 different genders. Nearly all the 72 I've never heard of in my life before. So the Constitution already permits that the individual, the freedom of the and the dignity, the freedom and the dignity of the individual may be assured. It also permits in Article 40 and 38 that no person or no citizen as human person shall be deprived of their liberty. So there is a lot of things within the Constitution. Religious rights are things that can be taught at home and all. You can't bring your religious rights in to school and enforce that on children if you're employed to teach history. Do you get what I'm saying? So it all comes down to your terms and conditions of employment. It was the same with the masks as well. It was the same as the masks as well. You can turn around and say to your employer, I am not refusing to do that. But is it within my terms and conditions of employment that I must do that? And if it says, if you can't find it within it, well, then that's a breach of contract and you have a civil case. So you could take a civil case against them because it's not in your contract. And I don't think Enoch Burke would be the type of boy that would sign a contract willy-nilly. I would say it would be quite detailed and go through every word of it. And
Mark,
indeed. Sarah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, in regards to that, us as parents send our children to school. So we are contracting with the school.
Yeah.
And let me think about when I sent my son to school. It's a while ago now, but it wasn't in terms and conditions for my child to be learning about 72 genders. They
Exactly.
can change their sex, etc., etc. And this is something that we've had a lot of discussion about over the past few years. And there's a lot of people choosing to home educate their children now rather than send them in to school and risk them learning stuff like that. So there's two ways, I suppose, you could deal with it. Number one, you could deregister your child from school and homeschool them, or fight with the Constitution.
Yeah,
What's your
two
thoughts?
things. The law does protect the education and the family. As set out as the natural institute of society, moral institute of society. So if we're sending our children in to be taught by service providers, well, at least we have the right as mothers and fathers as to what way our children are taught. So yes, you have the right to challenge this, but you have to do it correctly, people. To challenge things, the worst thing that you can do is go in shouting at teachers into the school. I don't want my children taught this and da da da. They're only there doing what their job permits them to do, what they're contracted to do. Be smart. Put it down in writing that you want a meeting with one of the teachers, the head of the year or whatever. You get to meet with the head of the year and you go in and you say, take me through what the education, the what do you call it, the curriculum for the year of this PSE, is it, or whatever, sexual education or whatever. And if that is not to your satisfaction, well, you can negotiate with the school that you don't want your child to participate in that. That you think that it is up to you to teach your child those things. That you're protected in law to teach your child those things. And your child is not obligated to learn those things or go along with them. So, with all due respect, you can teach whatever other children because they're nothing to do with me. My child is my property, and their upbringing and their education is my business.
Okay,
No,
Mark.
no
Mark,
other child is
something
your
needs to be
business.
said here.
Yeah, no
Something
other
needs to
child
be
is your
said here.
business.
Yes.
And that you individually, as with those individual rights and the family rights and all that, you can protect your child. And I done that, folks. Whenever 2020 came in and all the schools closed and then they opened up again and they had preconditions of going back to school, of 2 meters distancing, wearing a mask, using alcohol on their hands and washing their hands, and maybe being sent home if their class had somebody in their class was tested positive with PCR or something like that. And I done the smart thing, and I just wrote a letter to the teacher with my concerns, the head teacher, and the head teacher phoned me, and the head teacher reassured me that she will respect my decisions, that she has to respect the decisions of all the other teachers or all the other parents in the school, but she will respect mine, and that my child at the time will not have to participate in any of that. And I can categorically tell you here now that my son told me that he did not have to participate in any of that.
Okay.
He rang me one day from school, and he says, Dad, can I come home or can I take off the rest of the week? I says, why? He says, because somebody tested positive in my class and the rest of the class, all the parents are participating in this, and they all have stayed at home because of close contact. He says, I go, so where are you at? He says, I'm sitting in the class by myself because you told them that I wasn't allowed to participate in all that. That's the strength of knowledge, people, of taking it the correct route, putting it down in writing, and not bringing yourself into disrepute and anger. Do not accuse anybody of anything. Just always tread carefully and state your specific rights as a mother or a father, natural rights constitutionally protected. And you don't have to fall out with anybody. Ask them, can they provide alternative means of education? Look at the report card for your child, and if they're lacking in English, if they're lacking in mathematics, if they're lacking in science, if they're lacking, that is called negotiation. And the power of negotiation is the best way, diplomacy. And you will have greater outcomes there for the child, because at the end of the day, your best interest is for the child's needs and the child alone. So the educational, they're depleting in mathematics here, and those extra maybe hour or two a week while your other children are in sexual education or whatever. I want my child, if please, could they maybe get into extra mathematical tuition?
Okay,
And that's
Mark, I just want to say something very quickly here, because this is often overlooked in these conversations in ERA. You talk about how it's not appropriate for children to be forced to learn certain things associated with gender. Does this logic of yours also extend itself to language? That is Clo Gaelic, which is sorely neglected. Any outsider can look at the situation in ERA and say, okay, your national language is Clo Gaelic, yet nobody can speak it. So when you say these kids should not be forced to learn about genders, would you make an exception and say that children in ERA ought to learn the national language? Otherwise, the language will go extinct, and a vital part of Gaelic culture will go with it. We only got 3 minutes, but we're talking about education, and everyone's always talking about this gender situation, and no one talks about the language. And I think that's a very important part of the conversation.
Well, the Constitution says that the Irish language is the first national official principal language, principal being the operative word, number one language. And Sax Berla is only accepted as a second language. Then in Article 63, it says that if there's ever any conflict between the Irish and English text, the Irish text takes superiority. So in the north here, right, just the other day they had a thing there that the courts will hear in Irish, and they're changing the signs and all up here. And just the other day in the Houses of Commons in London, Claire Hanna of the SDLP in Northern Ireland, the political party, the leader of it or whatever, stood up in the House of Commons and spoke Irish. And this is what she said.
Deis chun teanga agus our culture Keller for fun and known. Happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody, and happy Irish Language Week as well. An opportunity to use Irish language and culture across the world. It's an increasingly turbulent world, Prime Minister, with relationships and norms turned upside down over recent weeks, and that's why I congratulate the Prime Minister and the Taoiseach for re-establishing warm and firm relationships at their summit last week. And it's reassuring for all of us to know that whatever our constitutional future, that bond is lasting and refreshed. Will the Prime Minister join me in wishing a happy St. Patrick's Day to all who value our shared bonds? And can I take this opportunity to invite him to Belfast in August 2027, which was announced this week as the host of the Black Fiona Heron for the first time.
So there you go. In 2027 in Belfast, which back in the 80s you wouldn't have had, it was very unionist and loyalist ruled. Well, here we're having the fla in 2027 for the first time, the world fla of Irish music, tradition and culture. And there you have it here. This week past there was Irish Language Week. And they made a special law that Irish language will be heard now in courts in the north, if people so wish. So the Irish language is making a huge comeback, especially in the north. Not a huge comeback. It's actually just growing in strength. Unionist communities now and all are starting to learn how to speak it. And I think it will. I think the Irish language now, they've cut money off it. Through budgets there as well. They've cut money off it. I've seen the Irish language people were talking about that. But yes, the Irish language is alive and well in this island. The Irish culture is, but it needs protected, people, and it's all constitutionally protected. Legislation will come in, yes, and it will come and go, but we can challenge legislation constitutionally. If it's inconsistent with the Constitution, it should be deemed repugnant and therefore nullified and deemed null and void.
Great way to end the discussion for this week. Maybe we can pick up on this line of thinking related to language next week. As mentioned, the original Constitution was written in Gaelic. If the kids can't read Gaelic, then they don't know their own Constitution. Hello, and